out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. This poem is called There Is a Field by the 13th century Persian poet Rumi. It is on the title of this poem that I have based the name of this podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Meet Me in the Field, a podcast about spiritual journeys. I am Freddie van Rensburg, a qualified counsellor from Somerset West outside Cape Town in South Africa. I am a recovering addict and have been in recovery for close to 8 years now. As a result of my recovery and working 12-step programs in various fellowships, I have found a new way to live, which is infinitely better than my life in addiction. I see the recovery program as a design for living and believe that I now live mindfully and connected. I live with more purpose and call this way of living spiritually. Many people would not call this spirituality, but for me, that is spirituality. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to talk to some friends about their spiritual journeys. Our paths may have been vastly different, but all our roads led us to some form of a spiritual place in our lives. Our beliefs on what spirituality is for us may be vastly different, but we all feel that we have found a sense of it. This podcast is about our journeys to and our interpretation of spirituality. In this episode, I am conversing with my husband about my plans for the podcast, and we inadvertently end up discussing our individual takes on spirituality. He is a computer scientist and not in recovery. He prides himself in his empirical take on life, and you will hear from our conversation that we do not always see eye to eye on the topic of spirituality. You and I may also not agree, but I trust that we can be accepting and tolerant of each other's journeys. I hope you will be walking this path with us and maybe even acquire new information or pick up something interesting that can help you or someone else. But mostly, I believe that we are here to enjoy life. I wish you joy on this journey.
Recovering addicts don't have a monopoly on spirituality,
But
they have a unique take on it for sure.
yes,
So-
and I want to share that unique take. I want to share the hope of from hell to hope, and I want to
They call the podcast.
digging into spirituality. You normally find recovery when you hit rock bottom, but you don't have to hit rock bottom. All you can do is you can stop digging.
I understand that little phrase, but that's just one phrase. I mean, it can't be the only one. What about something like more Eastern, Thai, spiritually, like journey to spirituality, or finding your balance, or cheap Thai massages?
Happy endings.
Happy endings. Happy endings! Great title for a podcast.
I don't know. I like the digging thing. It resonates with.
Well, then I've got the perfect title music. Do you know the Notting Hill Hillbillies?
I don't want to even think about it.
Working on the railroad, chink. Working on the railroad, chink. I think it's perfect.
It sounds like people who would say, "This is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl, and my brother."
What kind of themes do you think you want to cover? Or do you just want to have different people's experiences?
Yeah, it will be nearly type of an experience, strength, and hope type of conversation, but it will be focused on their spirituality.
Okay.
Most people I know don't actually know what their spirituality is based in, but they do have a very strong sense of spirituality in that they try to do the good thing, they try to do right, and they try to live correctly, and for them that is spirituality. That's God. That's good orderly direction. Even though they have no concept of a God, they try to live good orderly.
I think that's good. I think it's good to have a strong moral sense and to live by a strong moral code.
And it's like me. I mean, my spirituality is based in the 12 steps. The principles of spirituality for me are the spiritual principles, like love, empathy, compassion, understanding, acceptance, open-mindedness,
think
willingness.
of that as spirituality.
See, for me, that is spirituality.
to me, that is not explicitly not spirituality. Love, to me, is not an aspect.
Love is the ultimate spiritual principle.
Love, to me, has no role in spirituality. And, well, maybe I should take that back. Maybe I haven't thought about it enough. But generosity, honesty, openness, all that stuff is, to me, part of your character. Don't say that's what spirituality is. To me, spirituality is a focus on things that are not a focus, but a focus on things that are not spiritual, physical. So,
Like love.
love can be physical if it's done right. I don't know how I would define spirituality. It's mostly defined in a negative way, but by people who say, "Oh, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I believe in a higher power, an aura, and crystal."
Well, but that's what I wanted to say earlier. It's like my spirituality is based on the 12 steps anyway, and I've created a higher power for myself in my own head, which is Natura. And then I sometimes, while I'm praying to Natura, I think, you're actually crazy because you're praying to an entity that you've made up. You have no idea. It doesn't exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have to question the value of something like. I mean, in some sense, you're fooling yourself, isn't it?
Well, we do use the term fake it till you make it.
Yeah, but that's something else. I mean, when you say that, I think that you fake it in a sense that you act out certain behavior that is good behavior. So much, even if you doubt it at times, you act it out so much that it becomes second nature later on. So it's basically forming a habit of good behavior.
But if you look at recovery, for instance, the concept of spirituality in recovery is you get to step 6 and 7, step where a very big part of the steps, step 4, 5 and 6, are identifying your character defect. So that is character traits that went tits up. Things like pride. It's good to have pride. It's good to be proud of what you do.
Yes.
But too much pride can be very detrimental.
Yes.
Things like perfectionism. It's very good to be very precise with what you do. But when perfectionism becomes the ultimate goal, it becomes defective.
Yes.
So then it becomes a character defect.
Yes.
So then in step 7, what you do is you identify what's the opposite spiritual principle of the defect.
Does there need to be one?
Well,
What's
if
the
you
opposite?
so something like
Perfectionism. I mean, pride is easy.
Perfectionism.
You'd say humility.
Yes.
But
Perfectionism, the opposite spiritual principle, is acceptance. Accept things as they are.
Isn't that another way of saying you are simply less perfectionist?
Yeah. But so therefore, when you want to act out on perfectionism, the good orderly direction in spirituality says, don't. Accept that this is good enough. That is spirituality.
Freddie, I don't want to undermine your life, your philosophy anyway. But to me, it sounds unnecessary and
How can it be unnecessary?
fake to dress up.
Okay.
That it's almost like you're hijacking spirituality to have people acquire these habits. So I want to act out on my perfectionism. It's not that the opposite spiritual principle is tolerance or acceptance. That's just the right behavior. That we shouldn't be too perfectionistic and we should accept the trade-off between spending, we shouldn't let perfectionism or quality work hijack our behavior. But I feel I can say that without using the word spirituality.
Maybe
Or spiritual
maybe
principle.
I must. Okay. I think the first thing is that is what I base my spirituality. And nobody has any right to question my spirit.
Do you believe
Because because part of spirituality is to accept other people for who they are, to accept people for what they are.
That is circular reasoning.
So
Nobody can question my spirituality because part of spirituality is that you must accept other people.
Okay.
And therefore you must practice spirituality and accept my spirituality.
Let's look at NA, for instance. So there's 40 different addicts in one room.
Yes.
From very wealthy, very successful,
All walks
professional,
of life.
all walks of life.
Got it.
You can't look at one person
Yes.
and say that I don't gain him the right to be here because he's poor, he's ugly, he smells, he's drunk, he's
Of
whatever.
course not. You mustn't discriminate
So-
on
so-
people based
So
on...
you need to accept other people.
I agree.
Bottom line, we everybody has a right to life, to happiness, to
Absolutely,
to
I
whatever.
agree with that. But what I find a little... I think 12 Steps is so great because it teaches you skills that everyone needs in their lives. But what I don't like about it is the spirituality angle. 12 Steps is promoting, it's advertising, it's encouraging people to be, let's say, be spiritual, to work spirituality into their life. And for some people, very religious people, or people who follow some kind of Eastern mystic, old ladies who burn incense and do yoga, have been to Thailand 5 times. For them, maybe that is a part of their lives. But I do not believe that spirituality is a necessary component of 12 Steps. I think that learning to be reflective, self-reflective, and the way that you process what has happened in your life and the habits you learn.
So okay,
That is the valuable aspects of 12 Steps. But I'm sure many people come into recovery and maybe even primary care and say, oh yeah, I'll take that and that and that, but I don't want that and that and that. And then they're told, no, pack it, have to take all of it.
well then one of the other things we always say is take what you need and leave the rest.
You say a lot of things. Who's saying all these things?
That's what we say.
We, okay, I'm sorry.
Us.
Yes,
Okay. And it's absolutely your right to choose whatever you want to. But for instance, one of my biggest character defects when I came into recovery was self-pity. I felt very sorry for myself about the crap that I got myself into, and then I used the self-pity that I told everybody how awful my life was,
yes.
and then I used that sympathy that I got I used my self-pity to seek attention. So the next character defect became attention seeking.
Oh.
And then in attention seeking, I get people to affirm how shit my life is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use that spiral that I'm allowing myself to get into.
Yeah.
My life is shit, everybody tells me my life is shit, my life is shit, everybody tells me my life is
But
shit.
there's no reward
To-
there, but the reward is because
No.
people say, oh, you poor thing.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. But then I use that to act out on, especially in terms of my sex addiction. Because then my life is so shit, so I need to go and affirm myself. I need to go and affirm that even though my life is so shit, I'm still okay.
And you're also justifying whatever
Yeah.
bad behavior by saying, oh, my life is so terrible.
Exactly, yeah. So with what happened to me in terms of the retrenchment
Yeah.
is up until now I haven't acted out on self-pity at all,
Right.
which is something that you can really go and sit down and feel very self-piteous about.
Yes, you can. You could
Yeah.
take it that way.
But in the past 7.5 years, I've taught myself that self-pity is not an option for me because that takes me to places that's not healthy for me. So for the past few days, I've really been focusing on the positive. We say the opposite spiritual principle of self-pity is gratitude. I've been focusing on gratitude. Why do I have to be grateful? Rather focus on that.
yeah.
And that for me is the defective behavior is self-pity, the spiritual behavior is gratitude. That is my
So-
spirituality. The right thing, the good order direction
in that
is
sense,
gratitude.
yeah, exactly. In that sentence, you are just using spiritual as a synonym for good. Bad behavior, self-pity,
Exactly.
good behavior, gratitude.
Yeah.
It's not spiritual
For me, that is spirituality.
in the same. I mean, it's spiritual at least to the same degree that self-pity is spiritual.
For me, that is my spirituality. And you can't take that away from me. Nobody has the right to take that away from me.
Of course, nobody has the right to take that away from you. Maybe. When you see someone who is using the wrong end of a can opener and they're just struggling to open a can, would you go up to them and say, let me show you how I do it, or whatever you say to them in a polite way? You don't say to yourself, well, that guy's never going to open that can, but I don't have the right to take his stupidity away from him.
Now,
Sometimes, I know what you're saying. I mean, this is a kind of grey area because you don't have the right to go to other people and say, look, I know you believe in Muhammad or whatever, but it's all nonsense. Or
absolutely.
I mean, you have to respect people's religious beliefs. But on the other hand, there is also, sometimes there's a line where people are just silly. I mean, if people believe in divinity of pasta makers. You're not going to take that as seriously as someone who believes in spirituality.
If that belief in the divinity of pasta makers helps them to live a good life, then by all means,
That
go
is
for it.
so
Believe in it.
patronizing. I mean, that is very patronizing to say that, oh, poor savages, they're so stupid, they just can't do anything. I mean, they believe in pasta makers, but let them believe in it.
Who am I to question that person's spirituality? That is
I-
so patronizing to think you have the right to question somebody else's spirituality.
I'm not sure if I'd call it a right. But I also don't think you need to. Maybe you shouldn't question it. Maybe you don't have the right to. But I also don't think that you must just let people suffer or work under.
Maybe you didn't hear what I said. I said if that works for them, that's the operative part of that sentence. If believing in the divinity of pasta maker reduces their suffering, then go for it. Then it works for them. But I hardly have one sponsee with whom I 100% agree with their spirit. I've got
I don't know. I just feel that there's something gone awry in that argument. Not
I get the
sure
feeling
I
that
can
you've
put my
got a
finger
picture
on
of
it.
spirituality in your head, and my take on spirituality doesn't fit into the burning of incense and the
I think that
meditating.
well, there has to
in
be some
temples
spiritual,
and
some spirit connected with it. I mean, that's the origin of the word. And if you relax the definition of spirituality so much that it can include anything, then it has lost all meaning.
But it can't. My spirituality doesn't contain everything because, as I said, I don't believe with the Christians.
You call it. You've already admitted that you use spiritual as a synonym for good. So it is at least relaxed to the point where your spirituality is merely a distinction about what you think is good behavior and what you think is bad behavior.
No.
That's very relaxed. I mean, there's a very non-specific.
So why does spirituality have to be a restrictive dense thing? It's as if you've got a picture in your head of people suffering for their spirituality.
I'll admit that I don't have a concrete definition of spirituality, and that it's more a case of I know it when I see it. But all words need to be restrictive. They have to have restrictive definition, because if all words can mean anything, then no words mean anything. I wanted to say no words mean nothing, but that's double negative.
I get the idea you want to get
Yeah,
involved in a
No, I don't-
semantic
no.
conversation instead of a spiritual
Well,
conversation.
It's in
We're
this
not
case
talking
it's a little.
linguistics here. We're talking spirit here.
In this case, it's a little bit of both. Because to understand something, we have to talk the same language. That's your biggest mistake.
Is spirituality is not something you understand. You take the mind that is completely against spirituality.
I may not understand your spirituality, but I need to understand the definition of the word spirituality.
You as a scientist,
For
feel
us to
you need
communicate at
understand.
all, we need to understand the words the other one is using. If I say bang 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 and you don't know what it means, then we cannot communicate. So it's important that we have a rough agreement on what words mean in all words, and we do. 99.99% of all the words we are using, the other one understands what they mean.
Except
But
spirituality.
I think that we have differing definitions.
So
of-
what's your definition of spirituality? What do you understand under spirit?
Once again, I don't think I can give a concrete definition. It's a bit of a loose category of things, but to me, spirituality is religion without religiosity. It's as opposed to, I mean, you have your physical body, you have your mind, and you have your spirit. That thing associated with your being that people believe is not part of their mind.
So now you understand why I said that you can't bring the mind, the understanding into spirituality. They are two different things.
I agree with you that mind and spirit are different. But that doesn't mean we can't understand spirituality. We understand religion. We know what it is. We know the definition of religion. To believe in some kind of supernatural being or beings. And associated with it are traditions and rituals and ways of behavior, moral codes, you might even. So that's a good definition of religion. But
So isn't a moral code good orderly direction?
say again?
Isn't good orderly direction a good example
Good
of
orderly direction. Good
Oh.
what?
good orderly direction?
Orderly.
Yeah. God, good orderly direction. What we've been discussing.
What the hell you're talking about? What is orderly? What do you mean by orderly?
But that's what we've been talking about the whole time.
What do you mean by orderly?
I've said earlier that God stands for good orderly direction.
I don't know what orderly means.
Making the right decision.
Oh.
Being good. Making
Just good.
move positively forward.
Good direction. Orderly
Yeah.
has no
Well,
sense.
the O just comes in to stand for God.
What about good old direction?
Well, you can say that as well.
Okay.
Because what we try to say, we try to say to people, don't let the word God freak you out. Because God is only good old direction.
I don't want to be insulting, but what number in the phrase book of cute little acronyms is that in the 12 Steps Handbook? Is it number 55?
The
Is
problem
that number
is
55?
That the word God appears quite a lot in the 12 steps. And most
Yes.
of us, when you read those 12 steps for the first time, you freak out.
I wish it didn't. I'd take it out. I still feel higher power is a little too...
So what would you use? Power
Nothing.
greater than yourself?
No, that's just a restatement of higher power.
No.
No use rephrasing the words.
I don't agree with you. I think greater is just something that's
What's the difference between greater and
stronger.
higher?
Higher has, in my mind,
An altitude.
has a hierarchy involved, while greater doesn't.
Greater is stronger, yeah. So it's hierarchy. Strength hierarchy, size hierarchy. We're talking about moral code.
Ah.
And there is something called morality, which is just basically it's good and bad behavior. Now, this is very fuzzy because what is good and what people's definitions aren't this. But roughly, it's, the golden rule. Treat other people as you want to be treated yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be a social parasite. Don't exploit other people's goodness. And also fairness. Treat everybody the same. All kinds of things, I'm sure. But that kind of morality, what is decent and what is not decent, is, I think, and I think many atheists feel, independent of religion. I think I can be a moral person without believing anything that is not physical or mental. But it is true that many religions come with a moral code. Some I disagree with strongly and some I agree with mostly. So definitely part of religion is this moral code. But I think the moral code can come on its own. I mean, we don't need God to tell us what is right and wrong, or what is the right thing to do and not the right thing. We know this because there are many different religions, but people are still basically following the same moral. And there's no sensible religion where people eat their children, kill their children. There's no religion that supports a moral code where people kill each other arbitrarily. But maybe that's what you mean by spirituality, just a moral code to develop, to tell yourself and others what is good behavior and bad behavior. I'd call that morality, not spiritual. So maybe you should replace higher power by higher morals. I don't think that's going to take. Maybe part of my acceptance to accept the 12 steps.
This was quite an abrupt end to our conversation. As you can hear, there is quite a difference between what Jaco and I perceive to be spirituality. Neither of us live in the belief that we actually know what it is, or what it should be. But it highlights the exciting fact that there are probably as many opinions on this matter as there are people. Even more stimulating, and what the focus of this podcast is the road each individual took to end up at their unique concept of spirituality. This is the path I hope to tread with you over the next couple of weeks. Hope you are keen to embark on this journey with me. Well guys, this is it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddie.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddie.org.za, or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddie. Remember that Freddie is always spelled with an IE at the end. Be safe.